Hey guys, happy Saturday. Welcome. So, I don't know how many of you do resin, but thanks for joining. What I'm doing today is trying again for like the 875th time to do what's called a fairy flower technique. Basically, what that involves is resin that is colored with either acrylic ink or a pigment. And you mix up a few different colors. You kind of do a little bit of a dirty pour. And supposedly, if you do this properly, at the end you have a really cool flower. So I am using a mold today that is made by Julie Cuts from Pouring Your Heart Out. This is her rock edge mold. I do believe it holds about 220 grams. We're probably gonna do maybe a little bit less than that, but first things first, let's check this out and see if our mold is level, which it's pretty level. Also a very important piece of this. Second thing is to put your mold always onto some type of a trivet where it's lifted up off of your bench or working surface. That's because what we want to have happen is that this thing moves as much as possible during the process. We also need to have us a piping bag because we're going to be piping some white. So the first thing that we're going to do here is mix up some resin. And today we are going to do something that is a green. So let's find a green. I think we'll use Woodruff from Octopus Fluids. This is not an alcohol ink, guys. This is actually a pigment. So we're going to use green. We are going to use, let's see, lemon. Lemon. I think, if I'm not mistaken, sandalwood is a bit of an orange. No, let's use pumpkin. So we're going to use pumpkin for our orange. We're going to mix these two together. And then we're going to use a red blue. Again, going to mix together. So I think we will use sweet cherry. Oops, knocking down my acrylic inks. We're going to use sweet cherry. And for our blue, we're going to use, we got a whole bunch of stuff falling down. Avalanche. Yikes. Okay, I stack all of my inks on top of one another. Not the smartest choice. So, again, we're going to mix a few different inks together. I'm going to get rid of these cups. I try to reuse as much as humanly possible. I'm going to reuse this cup, though, for my resin. So in order to do this, I don't know if you can actually see, but you're just going to need a scale. And you're going to zero out your scale. And we are set on grams. And today, I think I'm just going to use, a 1-to-1 resin. That's what I think. A lot of times you do, a lot of times, actually, no, I'm not, because it's probably going to set up too fast. So we're going to use Art Pro today. This is a 3-2 resin. So when we're using this particular resin, its component A would be 100 grams, component B would be 66. I have a little chart over here somewhere. I just bought a bunch of handy dandy little resin chart, if you can see. So we're going to be mixing up a 3-2 resin. So that's going to be this section over here. And I told you that I think this mold holds about 200 grams or so. So we're going to pick 125 of A, 85 of part B. This is the part B, because that's going to give us something that's close enough. Just pouring this in here right now. Now, the objective of using the 3-2 resin is that this is thinner. It's also an art resin, which gives us a lot more working time. And in theory, this is supposed to allow us to have our resin move quite a bit, which is what we need, right? We need these colors to kind of move from the outside, blend together. What did I say? 88? Oh, 85 and 125. Okay. We want these colors to kind of move together here. So that was part B. Now we're going to do part A. And because I always over pour, we're going to do a little bit more, 128. I pour resin like I drive, which is heavy friggin' handed, so I'm just trying to not go too far over. So bear with me. Okay. So again, for anyone who's joining or interested, this is the Art Pro resin. 3-2 resin gives you quite a bit of working time. Pardon the noise, but I don't have a respirator on while I'm talking to you, which you should be using. So what I am going to do is just turn on my chemical air purifier. So now we're just gonna mix up our resin. Get rid of our chart because we don't need that anymore. You guys can admire my new blessed bracelet while I'm mixing my resin. I got this from Bobble Bar. It just arrived yesterday. Gotta be grateful in life, for sure. So again, the objective here today, darn it, something is always flying into my resin. So the best way to keep your molds clean, obviously, you guys probably know this, but I will repeat it. You do not want to wipe your molds with anything. Your molds have a really shiny surface. They should, at least, if they're made to be shiny. And you want to have your molds maintain that shiny surface. And silicone is super picky. Silicone will pick up whatever you do to it. It will stain, it will scratch, it will get swirl marks, it will get smudges, and when those things occur, your mold is pretty much ruined and you have to throw it away. So what you do is just take a piece of tape, doesn't matter what kind, I just have painter's tape everywhere. So you just use a piece of painter's tape and you just kind of go around your mold. It takes out obviously little pieces of hair, little pieces of debris. It'll clean up mica powder if you use mica powder in your molds. I will say too, for those of you who maybe are not resin professionals, you should, I've started to wear goggles because my eyes get a little bit dry now when I'm working with resin. I'm not quite sure what is causing that, and you should also wear a chemical respirator, and not just any respirator. You need to have the pink 3M filters for your respirator, otherwise it is not cleaning the particles out. So when stirring your resin, again, I stir my resin like I drive at 100 miles an hour. It's really important for you to make sure that this is mixed thoroughly. You want to be scraping down your sides, making sure that your stick is touching your bottom and that you are scraping off your stick, and that you are mixing your resin for a good 3 minutes. These are important steps. So hey guys, sorry if I can't really talk to you. I'm a one-woman show over here. I don't have people who can like comment for me, so I'm sorry if you ask questions or say anything and I can't see you. Thanks for the hearts. I love you guys too. So again, just so that you can kind of see my resin here, hopefully you can. It's full of bubbles, right? You should be stirring slow, like you're making love to it, not like you're banging like rabbits. And as you can see, that's not what I do. I do have a Resiner's bubble machine. I don't know if you guys have heard of that before, but basically you put your mixed resin into the machine and that will remove the bubbles. It runs for about 5 minutes. Then you release the air. After you release the air, it will kind of remain locked until all of the pressure is out. Once all of the pressure is out, then you can open it. And once you open it, you know, it's pretty much all the bubbles have come to the surface. Another thing that you don't want to do, and you may have heard to do this, is to spray your molds with alcohol. No, don't do that. Alcohol bad on the top surface of your molds. I used to always spray my molds with alcohol, and I could never figure out how come my mold or my finished pieces would kind of look like they had an oil slick on the top. And I was always like, what the frig is this from? And really and truly, it's from the alcohol. The alcohol reacts weird to the resin, and although it pops the bubbles, which is what we want, right? It's why we use it. It also makes a mess out of our finished product. So spraying the backside of a mold or in between layers, totally fine. Just don't spray what's going to be the top of your piece. Okay? Again, this is the Rock Edge mold. This is from Julie Cuts at Pouring Your Heart Out. If you like this mold or any other molds that you ever see me work with, you can get them from her off of eBay. She has an eBay store. It's Pouring Your Heart Out. They do ship from Australia unless you get a couple of the molds that are available on Amazon. Still, you have to be patient with the shipping, but the molds are fabulous and I highly recommend you'll use these molds if you take care of them for a long time before you'll have to replace them. Okay, so enough with that. We have our mixed up bubbly resin. Yay, yay, yay. And we're gonna pour about, I guess about an ounce of resin into just this cup. And this is gonna be our white. This is gonna be our white for our dots. I'm gonna do a little bit more. We're gonna do 1.2. So this is what we have. This is I think, a 5-ounce cup, I wanna say. So this 5-ounce cup, I have put 1.2 ounces of resin in here. I'm just gonna turn the scale off now. We're gonna take 3 more cups and we're gonna put an even amount of resin in here. I'm not really gonna measure these, right? Resin isn't about being overly precise. I mean, of course, recipes, as in anything, if you bake and you use a recipe, it tends to turn out better. If you don't use a recipe, if things may not turn out quite right for you. So I just want to kind of divide this up. We're going to leave a little bit in our cup because we do need a little bit of resin here at the end to finish pouring into our mold. So we're going to leave about 90 milliliters left, or about 3 ounces of resin left for our push at the end. We have 1.2 ounces of clear resin in here. And what we are gonna do is we're gonna take this Bloom white pigment paste and we are just gonna put maybe like 3 drops in here. One, whoop. I didn't do a very good job at that. So that was probably more like 5 drops. Don't squeeze too hard. If you squeeze, sometimes there's an eruption. Okay, so this is the white Bloom paste. We're just gonna take a different stirring stick. I reuse my stick, so don't mind me that they're dirty. And we're gonna mix this up, but what we are looking for in this cup, if you guys can see, I think this light gets a little bit bad the closer I get, is we want this to be very opaque. And opaque basically means that we don't want to see our stick after we stir this. Scraping down the sides, scraping along the bottom, scraping off our stick. We want to make sure this is really, really well mixed before we put anything else in it. So if you guys can see on my stick right here, if we tip it, we can definitely see this stick. But when we just kind of pile some on here, we can still see through the white. So that is not what we want. We're gonna put in another drop because we want this to be definitely more opaque. And the reason for that is that we want to have this kind of drop down and spread out. And that is what's supposedly going to create our petals. Now, for anybody who wasn't here at the beginning, I'm telling you that if I were to take you on a little walk about 15 feet from where we are, you would see a bazillion of these damn things. I swear to God, I have done these different flower techniques at least 50 times. And a couple have turned out, but more often than not, they are failures. So I make no promises about what the heck this thing is gonna look like, but okay, so this looks much better. So can you guys see this on the stick? And then when we tip it over, so it's very opaque, but when we tip it over, we can still see our stick. So we don't want to see the stick like this. We want to see it when we start to flip it over. So this probably had about 4 drops in 1.2 ounces. We want to make sure our white is stirred. Stir this shit like your life depends upon it, because if you don't, you will get big blobby parts in the white, and those big blobby parts will ruin your piece if for some reason it happens to turn out. And remember, you don't have to be in a hurry. The Art Pro resin has like a 90-minute working time. Don't have to be in a hurry. So we're just going to use this cup, because what we need to do is take our small piping bag. You can buy these off of Amazon. We're just going to take our small piping bag. We're going to put it into this cup, like so. I'm going to open her up. And we're gonna take our 1.2 ounces of very opaque, nicely mixed resin, and we're just gonna dump it in here. Waste not, want not, guys. Scrape that shit right out of here. Scrape, 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 scrape. Now, the one beautiful thing about reusing these paper cups is that you do not lose your pigment in the paper cup. So you're gonna see here when we go to mix the other colors that we end up having to use a lot more pigment than we should have to, simply because it's paper and it's gonna absorb. So again, I clean off my sticks because I reuse them. So I'm just gonna throw that one down there. We have our white already here in this cup. We're gonna leave this stuff sitting here. So remember, how much do we have in here? Yay, 1.2 ounces, yay. So again, just gonna kind of twist this down here. I'm gonna cut the top of this off because we don't need all of this extra bag laying around. So I'm just gonna cut this off, fold it over, and I'm just gonna put it in this cup. Haven't cut a hole in the bottom yet. We're just gonna set it off to the side, let it kind of hang out there and marinate. So we're gonna throw that away. We'll leave out these scissors because we'll use those. We're gonna get us out a baby wipe. If you don't have baby wipes and you work with resin at all or mica powders, I would highly recommend that you get some. They clean up things pretty nicely. I had one because I used one just on the rim of a mold the other day. I have a couple of mica powdered deep pour molds sitting behind me waiting for me to decide that I want to waste that much resin. So again, we have poured equal amounts of clear resin into these cups. We did not measure, but if I was to guess, I would say it's probably maybe about an ounce or so each. And we're gonna mix a couple colors together. So we are going to mix sweet cherry and blue. Shake, shake, shake. shake your booty. And these colors, we're gonna do 3 drops of sweet cherry to start. These are pigments, again, pigment colors, not alcohol inks. These are Octopus fluid. The colors need to be dark, but not dark enough that you can't see the stick. So I'm gonna show you here in a minute. And what's gonna happen here, right, is, again, see all this color that is getting stuck on the side of the cup? See all that? And when you look in here, you're gonna be like, holy shit, that's super dark. But as you push it up onto the cup, onto the white area, you're gonna see that it's really not dark. But I think that this is more than enough. So that was 2 drops of Mystery Blue and 3 drops of Sweet Cherry. It's making us a really kind of pretty purple. So I'm gonna set those aside. Green is going to hang out in a cup all by itself. And for the green, we're using Woodruff. Again, this is another pigment. This looks pretty dark, but I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna do 3 drops. Let's see what happens. Let's grab another stick. And again, you can kind of see here, right, at the cup. These darn paper cups definitely take up a lot of the color, and this is way too light. So you see how when we bring it up on the stick, we can barely even see a color change? Too light. Again, stir, stir, stir like your life depends upon it. We're gonna put in a couple more drops of green because that's just not dark enough. You can also do some things like put in a drop or 2 of black if you want to. I tend to not do that, although that is a good way of helping your color get nice and dark without wasting so much of your pigment. Okay, so when we push this up onto the cup, this is still pretty transparent. Looks really dark in the cup again, but I think that we're gonna be good with this one. So we're just gonna kind of stir this. Scrape down those sides, scrape off your stick. Set this bad boy off to the side. Last one, what are we using? Yellow and orange. So it's pumpkin from Octopus Fluids and lemon yellow. Now, of course, yellow is a super bright color. I mean, it takes a lot of pigment, right? So we're gonna do 5 drops of yellow. Shake, 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 shake our pumpkin. And I think we'll just do 2 drops of pumpkin. Oh yeah, that pumpkin is definitely a darker color. So we're gonna mix this up. Oh, mama. Oh, this is actually kind of pretty though, huh? It's giving us a nice, like, dark orangey color. Now, sometimes what people will do is they will put these into a kind of a dirty pour. So they'll take another cup and they'll just pour a little bit of each color on top of each other. I'm a rebel. I'm not gonna do it that way. I'm worried this might not be dark enough. So see guys, when you look at it in the cup, see how dark it looks? And again, when you push it up onto the cup, see how transparent it is still? I think we need a couple more drops. So we had 5 already of yellow. We're gonna put in 3 more drops of yellow. 1, 2, 3. And we're gonna put in 2 more drops of orange. So stir, 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 like your life depends upon it. Scrape that stick, scrape those sides. And again, see, that's when you have these lighter colors and you're using these paper cups, this is what happens, you know? You lose a lot of that color. Ooh, that's so much better. Okay, guys, see when we push this up onto the white of the cup, see that color that we have? Yes, we can still see through it, but it's more opaque. Yes, perfect. Okay, so while these all sit here, we're gonna let them sit for a second. We have to prepare our last little cup here. So remember, we have about 3 ounces in this cup. And we're gonna do a couple of things here. We are going to find, we are going to find our Interference Gold by Pearlex. That's what it looks like. We're gonna put a little bit of this Interference Gold in here. Get a little mica powder spoon. The beautiful thing about interference powders, and I actually have a whole line of this powder. I just got it in for my shop. But anyway, the beautiful thing about interference powder is that it's not like mica powder, where mica powder tends to, not really, how do I want to say it? Interference powder tends to stay suspended in your resin, where mica powder tends to all drop down to the bottom. It's kind of like glitter in that respect. It'll drop down to the bottom. Now, I think one thing that I want to try with this push is another Octopus fluid pigment, but this one is called Enoki. And if you guys haven't heard of Enoki before, what Enoki does is it makes like a crackle effect in your finished product. So because this shit never works out for me anyway, why the hell not? So we're gonna do some, a nice big squirt. Always open these away from your mold, otherwise what happens? You get some caca in your mold. I don't even know, where does all this stuff come from? Like seriously, where does all of this shit come from? Okay, so you get some crusty bits on this stuff because remember, this is a pigment. And we're just gonna squeeze some into here. Wipe this off this time. And for this, we want it to be a little bit more on the transparent side. And we have our interference mica in there. So what we want this to look like, and hopefully it will, is skim milk. So if this looks like skim milk, it will be the right consistency roughly for our push at the very end. Now I will say, I have not taken the classes. So there was a lady named Micah. I'm not even quite sure where she's from, somewhere in Europe. I want to say she's from I want to say that she's from a Russian part of Russia, but I don't swear to it. You can't hold me to that. But anyway, this is our push. So it's going to be super pretty. There's going to have a little bit of a gold color to it. Honestly, I sprayed probably a little bit too much of the Enokia in it, but it's too late now. We're committed. We are committed. So, what do we know about resin? What we know is that part A and part B cause a chemical reaction which will heat up and then harden. So we're putting our mold, again, this is the Rock Edge mold by Julie Cuts. We're putting our mold up on a trivet just to try to slow down the process of curing. We have mixed up our colors here. And resin moves from the inside towards the center. Resin tends to want to pull itself away from whatever it is that you have put in there. We're going to take this little extra glitter piece that I have. We're going to stick it in the center and kind of press it down. Hopefully nothing goes under it. And it's not perfectly shaped, and I don't care. But what I was saying was basically what we want to have happen at this point, right, is we want to be cognizant of the fact that usually the color that we put into the center is going to be our outer ring color. So I think I'm gonna pour, I think I'm gonna do rings. Yeah. So, and I'm actually gonna start from the outside edge. And I'm just gonna pour a ring of this. This is instead of me pouring it all into a cup, okay? You could pour this all into a cup again and do a puddle pour. We're not gonna do that. So, just gonna pour little rings of resin, overlapping just a tad. Make sure you keep out your paper towel here for all your drippage. We're gonna do a little bit of this orange yellow now. Hopefully this doesn't end up looking like mud. We'll see. Back to our purple. Back to our green. See how thick this is, guys? And then I'm just gonna go around again, the same thing we just did. And our green. And some more of our yellow. One thing I'm not gonna do is scrape these out, because if we haven't mixed well, if we haven't mixed the pigment well, that's just gonna cause a problem. It's just gonna be icky messy, so we're not gonna do that. Now you can actually see where it would have been helpful again, right, to do our puddle pour, or our dirty pour, I mean. And so now we're just gonna cut a little hole about 2 millimeters roughly. Don't cut it over your resin, obviously. Let's test it and see that our hole's big enough. That looks good. And now we are going to make dots. So we're just gonna start on the outside, and we're gonna start putting dots. Squeeze, let go, squeeze, let go, squeeze, let go. Try to drop a nice uniform drop. Close to the edge, but not too close. You can always fill these in lighter if they move too far to the center. I'm gonna try to do this so that I don't have my arm in your way, but if it's in the way, I'm sorry. Now, when you do the next row, you want to try to put the dots same size in between the dots that you already made. And this piping bag of white is definitely getting warm, which is what we want. I have a feeling we should have mixed up more resin, because this doesn't look like we're going to be filling it anywhere near the top. So do you guys see how the first row of dots is starting to move in towards the center? Again, with each row, trying to put the next row of dots in between the ones that we already did. And just keep going around until you get to the center. In between. Oh boy, I'm like kind of off center here. Let's see if we can't even this out. Now, one thing I'm not going to do is go right into the center of this. And the reason why is, again, resin moves to the center, right? So as you can see, all of these dots are starting to move into the center. So we don't want to have a big white blobby center, at least I don't. So we're not going to do that. But what we are going to do is just kind of go back here now where these have started to move away, pull away from the edge, and just put another row of dots. Remember, close to the edge, but not touching the edge. Maybe a little bit. Another row. So the ones on the outside ring have a long ways to move. We're gonna leave that little opening there in the center. And I think we are going to do another row of dots. I'm gonna set this kind of upside down in our cup. So remember that we had this cup here and we were going to do this as our final push. Now we don't really want to torch a lot, but we do need to torch a little bit. And I don't have my torch in here because I've been working in the other room. So sorry guys, hold on 1 second for me. Break my leg. Okay, so I don't use a full-on torch. Look at how it's moving, guys. Can you see that? I just use one of these long neck lighters. This one is almost out of fluid, but just a quick torch in the center. Try to get some of those bubbles out. And I see, unfortunately, remember when we opened that and we had that, the Anoka white, and we had that little bit of crusty bits? So again, all of this is moving into the center, which is what we want. Now we're gonna take this, we're gonna keep an eye on it because we don't want it to overflow. We're gonna pour it really fast into the center. And again, we're not gonna scrape that out because it's pretty full. So there's a tad bit of waste in regard to this. Another little torch. But I think what we're gonna do at this point is put some more dots. So we're just going to start in the back again. Again, just kind of giving just slight pressure to have the resin come to the tip and then letting the drop fall out. By doing that, what we are doing is keeping the dots pretty uniform in size. Getting close to the edge of the mold, but not too close. And then in between, if possible, in between the dots that you already did. Don't do any trailing if possible. So trailing would be that you're kind of dragging the resin across and you're leaving like a little tail or trail behind it. Try not to do that. Around and around and around we go. I mean, honestly, remember we did 1.2 ounces of white. Too much. Could have probably got away with doing like 3/4 of an ounce, maybe even 1/2 of an ounce. But since we got this white, we don't want to waste too much of it. We'll just see what happens. We're gonna use it. Sorry about the hands, guys. This is getting down to the end of the bag. In between the dots. Around and around and around we go. Definitely getting thick. Okay guys, before I go too far into the center here, I just want to show you, can you see how pretty this is? So there's green and purple, right? So one part of this has really got a lot of purple in it, and then you can see a lot of green. In the center, you can see the orange, the yellow, and the green really kind of moving together. And you remember we put that glitter blue disc into the center. Now that I'm looking at this, probably should have used gold maybe, but just try to squeeze the rest of this stuff down into the bag so we can get closer to the center. Probably should have used gold. That might have looked a little better, but and I'm not going to go all the way into the middle again this time. I don't want to have, what we're trying to avoid by not going too far into the middle is having a big white blob of ickiness into the center. And the reason that you get that is because resin, again, as it's moving, it moves from the outside to the inside, and the inside doesn't have anywhere to go. So naturally, it's just gonna kind of fall and blob. So we're gonna stop right there. So again, we did 1.2 ounces in here, and you can see we still have some left over. So that was too much for our weight. We probably could have used a little bit more in our colors. Clean up a little bit. Let's just hang out for a second and see what happens with this while I wipe my sticks off. This technique too is not something that you want to be overly torching either, right? So obviously we have to torch for a little bit because we do have some bubbles in there, but we don't want to be overly torching. And I will reuse these sticks in these cups. So I'm just gonna kind of wipe them off with a baby wipe and pile them up there. This cup I have used plenty, so I think I can probably spare throwing it away. We're gonna throw away the rest of this white, which by the way is super hot. Wipe off our hands here. And if you give me a second, if you guys have hung around, maybe you've all left, I don't know. But if you have hung around, I'll bring you down here in a second and I will show you what we got going on. Just let me clean up a little bit and do a really quick little torch. Stay back as far as you can. Don't get too close to your mold. Don't want to melt your mold. Be careful because your lighter is going to be hot. And you know, guys, I did a pretty good job in measuring. Look at that. It's like full. That's awesome. And hopefully this time it works. I haven't really had success in doing these. I haven't taken the classes for mica, so I've just watched other people doing it, and watching those people and just kind of guessing, right? Eyeballing what it is that they do and trying to see if I can get it right. Ugh, I didn't wipe these cups off, so now they're making a mess everywhere. I know if you looked around in this room, you'd be like, oh my god, a fucking bomb went off in there. And you wouldn't be wrong, it does look like that. But I really don't like mess. I really am trying to be pretty orderly. This craft room though has just way gotten out of friggin' control. Like so far out of control, I can't even tell you. Just too much stuff. Which I did just buy some IKEA furniture, which I'm just gonna put out there, fuck IKEA. Once you get it together, it's awesome, but fuck IKEA. To put in my other room so that I can start to like really get shit organized. So that's what my project's been lately. But do you guys see? I was kind of worried that by doing that ring pour the way that I was doing it versus I usually reuse my gloves too, but those are pretty sticky. So I'm not gonna bother. So what I'm gonna do, so close your eyes if you don't wanna get like Blair Witch Project. I'm going to just bring you guys down off of there. And I wanna get you, if I can, close. Actually, let me flip you around, hold on. Where's the flip you around button? Like this. Hopefully get you over it. Okay, so can you guys see? Let me see if I can turn you this way so that you have more of the light. Do you guys see what's happening? The center is super stellar, right? The purple is kind of going in over top of the green, and you can see some yellow and orange. Do you guys see that? You can't see the disc that I put in. That's a great sign. That means hopefully that we got our colors dark enough. So again, sorry guys, there's like people trying to join in. We're almost finished here. You can see that there's a lot of the purple on the edges and the green. And then as we move in to the center, we have a lot of different colors happening. So even while we've been kind of hanging out together, you see how much it's changed, which is pretty spectacular actually. So who knows, this might be the time that this works. Maybe. Do you see how, let me see what you guys are seeing. Do you see how some of the edges here are starting to like lace and kind of bloom? Do you see that? That's cray. That's what we're looking for. That's what should be happening. So I don't know, guys. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it will work. What do you think? Maybe it'll work. Maybe. Anyhow, hope you guys enjoyed this. Obviously, we can't stay together until it cures. I wish that we could, but we cannot. So I am going to sign off now, but I hope that you guys learned something. And as always, if there's any questions that you have, now would be the time, right? When I'm not pouring something. But beyond that, I will definitely snap a picture of this when it's cured, and then you guys can check it out. But one more peek before we leave. And again, this is supposed to be a fairy flower. Technique's a little bit different because we had a lot of extra white. So we used that on a second row of dots. And we didn't do a traditional puddle pour. We actually did a ring pour. So we've done some things a little bit differently. But we did use the Art Pro resin, the 3:2. We mixed up, I think it was, what did I tell you? 200 grams, roughly around there. So we did a really good job with that. And the colors in here were green, yellow and orange, and blue and red. So hopefully this will turn out nice on the other side and not a muddy ass mess. So if you guys don't have any questions, I am going to sign off for now, but I appreciate you guys. Thanks for coming along with me, and have a great rest of your day. Chat soon. Bye.